we deregulated beer. And what happened? A bunch of craft brews came out everywhere. What we found is the individual New Yorker would go to a bar or a pub and literally buy a local craft beer, spend an extra dollar or two on their own, voluntarily buy more, spend more to buy something local. That can be done and should be done. We should follow that model with every single thing in New York State. We should do it with cannabis. We should allow for craft grows if we want to. We should do it with dairy farmers. We should allow for craft dairy products. We should allow for the local farmer to be treated like a small business and the small business to be treated like the real entrepreneur that he or she is. The more we do that, the more we grow our entrepreneur class, the more we keep people locally. New York State has been losing people left and right, over 2 million in the last 11 years. We lost a congressperson this year. That's how bad it is. How do we stop that? By having people find opportunity in our states, opportunities in our counties, and a big chunk of that is entrepreneurship. But I want to go one step further. If you're a local entrepreneur and you want to sell your product or service only in New York State, you should be immune from all federal regulatory bodies, allowing that local person to have a chance at attacking and fighting against that Goliath. The Goliaths always sell across states, so they have to deal with everything. Of course they do. However, if you're the little guy, you got to shut it moving up. You can decide, I want to stay local. I'm happy staying local. I don't want to get bigger. I like staying local. Okay. Or I want to get big. All right. Now you know when you're going to make that step. You can prep it, make that happen when it comes. You want to attack Goliath? Go ahead if you want to, but you'll know when to make that happen. If we're going to be successful as a state, we have to have real diversity in our business models. We have to have franchises. We've got to have big business too. And we have to have a very strong entrepreneur class. But Larry, there are people hurting. You're right. And imagine if instead of waiting for a big government or big company to help you out, you had a local person who would give you a second chance. A local person who would give you a second chance. What if you got a broken resume? What if you got fired recently? What if you have a prison record? What's the odds of some big company ever hiring you? They have a system. They're going to cut you out of that system. It's the local guy or gal who give you a second chance. New York State can be a place for second chances. Again, we focus on the entrepreneur class. Not just that. Who helps the poor more than anybody else? The big business, Walmart? No. It's the working poor, the middle class, the entrepreneur class. They're the ones who are in the soup kitchens. They're the ones donating. They're the ones helping the very poor. You want to help the very poor? Help the entrepreneur class. Yes. How do most people in poor areas get out of those poor areas? How did they get out of the barrio or the hood? Or when I was a kid, they called it the ghetto, right? I grew up in the ghetto in the Bronx, right? How'd you get out? Entrepreneurship. You go back 30, 40, 50 years ago, who owned the businesses in the poor communities? Those people. That's how they got out. You look now, who owns the businesses? Immigrants. That's how they get out. We have to support entrepreneurs for people to get out of those bad situations. Yes. The entrepreneur class is critical. The Roscoe Beer Company is a good example of that. I'm happy that they're here, and I'm happy that I came. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any question or comment? Please.
How would you convince progressive mindsets to hop on board with your policy?
Yes, and you might. Yeah, the question was, if you didn't hear it, was how do you get progressives to care about the same causes that I care about? It's what I just said. The average progressive wants to help the poor. The average progressive wants the little guy to move up the ladder. Me too. Me too. I just don't want a government program to do that. Right? Just because I don't want the government to do it doesn't mean I don't want it done. I still want it done. But I know what government programs tend to do. Government programs are very good at keeping people at a certain place. You probably won't die in the government program. Odds are. But you're not moving up. Right? But you probably won't die, but you're not moving up. But when community steps in and helps out, it changes everything. Remember, every time you add government, you remove community. People need services. People need help. I just want community to help more. Because when you go to a government program, whatever that government program is, they don't actually say, how can I help you? They talk about, how can I service you? They check a few boxes. You check these boxes. Here are your services. But what if those services don't help you? Oh, well. What if they don't get me to move forward? Oh, well. But imagine if instead it was a local community that could raise you up to get you that job, that opportunity. That's what I want. So I talk about those issues. One of the plans I came up with was if you're going to write your tax check to Albany, right? Whatever you're going to pay every month, whatever every year, you can take up to $250 of that, and instead of sending that to Albany, you can give it to a local nonprofit, any place in New York State. If it's in your county to support localism, it's double to $500. So you can give $500 to a nonprofit. You may go, Larry, $500, what's that? Individually, not much. I agree. But there's 1,000 of you doing it. For 1,000 people, give $500 to a local nonprofit. It's $500,000. You can make some damage. You could do something. You could help some real people here. And it doesn't get rid of the government. If you like your government, please keep giving money to your government. I know you don't like your government. But if you do like your government, please keep giving money to it. It's fine. I'm not going to stop you. It's voluntary. But imagine if you didn't just have the one monopoly that's government, but you had government programs and local community programs. Now, one of two things happens. One, I'm wrong, and the community programs fail. Okay, government's still there. Fine, right? What's the hell? What's the harm if I'm wrong? Or I'm right, and communities are actually better. If that happens, either more communities pop up, which is great, more services, or government gets better, awesome, still more services, or maybe government goes away and community can support its own self. In either case, people are still serviced. That's how I get them to understand it. I'm about helping people. Everything I talk about is helping people. That answer your question? Yes. Great. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, and if you're getting rid of the licensing,
yes,
going to the credentialing would help build the entrepreneur class.
Another thing, yes, the small business owners, very common small business owners, they get stopped by regulation and licensing. And I'm not against the state credentialing you. A state can credential if it wants to. I have no problem with that. But the difference between a credentialing and a licensing, if you have to get a license to do something like braid hair, walk a dog, I bring it up all the time, things like that, you have to get a license for that. Then if you do it without your license, you are punished. You will pay a fine, a fee, or even go to jail. But if we don't do that, we just go credentialing, which means you can do it, but without a government credential. And you must be transparent. I don't have a license to walk a dog. I don't have a license to braid hair. If the community cares, it doesn't go to you. It says, no, I'm only going to places that's credentialed. If the community doesn't care, it goes to you anyway. It allows someone to start their own business, to work on their own, particularly if they're in a bad personal spot, even a side hustle in theory, and get good, get better, then eventually get that credential and then move up. Why would I want to stop people from using their labor to make money? So I'm not saying we get rid of the credentials, leave them, but now they're optional. But here's the better part. What happens if you also not only have government credentials, but other credentials too? So you can get a government credential, you can also get a private sector credential, or no credentials. What does your community want? Support your community. That's what I want to do. Any other question or comments?
I do have one question.
Please.
You had spoken yesterday about nuclear power.
Yes.
The question is, would that just be the current uranium fission, or were you also thinking of liquid thorium?
I was thinking only Gen 4 and all the advanced. Thorium is fine. Yes, absolutely. Anything that can't, I want anything that can't melt down. That's what I want. If it can't melt down, I'm in. And lots of nuclear power now can't melt down. Physically cannot melt down. That's what I want. I don't want a chance for a meltdown. Right? If it's not water cooling, there's no meltdown. So anything non-water cooling, I'm in. That's what I'm talking about. We can do that. It's exciting. It's interesting. It brings new jobs. It brings energy. Right? It also does something else. It brings clean water. When you have the right amount of nuclear power, you also have enough desalination. So you also have clean water. You get clean water and clean power, and you can do blockchain mining. Win, win, win. Nuclear power is the answer. Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you. Guys, thank you so much. I have 2 more events today and 12 over the course of this trip.